Hello, welcome back. I'm Paul Scheele. This is the fifth session in our 6-session series. It's all about brilliant health. I hope you've been enjoying these sessions. How are you doing? What kinds of positive changes are you noticing in your health and wellness? I like to make a distinction, from 0 to -10 is sickness, and from 0 to +10 is wellness. Have you been noticing a shift in the right direction? Have you noticed a shift in your attitudes, your sense of possibility? Have you noticed a shift in the way you're focusing your mind, concentration, or use of your imagination, changing your mental model and giving a new set of ideas in your ongoing dialogue or suggestions to yourself and others? Hopefully, yes. These are indicators of success in the right direction. And have you been enjoying the Paraliminals? During these sessions, I've been suggesting some of the really powerful sessions for the Paraliminals for the work that we're doing here. And if you don't know the Paraliminal library, then I should let you know, first of all, Paraliminals are a way to not tell you how to live your life, but to really gain access to resources that already exist. So they create an environment in which you drop into that place where those capabilities, those miraculous capacities of mind, emotion, and body are accessible for you. And then you translate those into your life. So I'm not telling you how to live, I'm just saying, hey, it's within you, let's get it. And it's a unique technology because they speak in both ears, and at first it's difficult for people to really get, well, what's that doing? Well, it's bypassing your conscious mind and working more directly with your non-conscious mind. In addition to the way each one of these is carefully scripted, there is holosync tracks that are embedded within that are a binaural offset frequency that place the brain into the ideal state for what it is you're attempting to create. So it's an automatic mechanism for assisting you at learning. Now, the Paraliminal sessions that I've been recommending to you, although focused on what it is that we're working on here, the truth is there's two ways in which Paraliminals are often used by folks. One is for the specific issue. Like you have an illness and I recommend perfect health, right? So that's going to be a specific issue, a particular title for that. Another is for a general reason, like you just need to reset and recharge. You don't have any particular goal in mind other than to get a little bit of a rest, but while you're there, why not boost your self-esteem? Why not increase your motivation to accomplish an important goal? Or why not improve your sales process or your public speaking or your self-discipline or your personal confidence or whatever it might be? You can use a Paraliminal in a general way, essentially use it just to take a little nap. And when you awaken, all of those positive changes have occurred within you. So keep enjoying the use of these Paraliminals. If this is your first introduction to them, there's a lot for us to share with you about this technology. They're very exciting. We've got a lot of people who've been using them all over the world. More than 3 million recordings have been sold in over 185 countries. So this is it's a tremendous product line. I hope that you have access to them. Now, this session that we're getting into is about living beyond illness, disease, and pain. So what we're going to be exploring is what you don't know about health, especially when you're dealing with illness. How medicine and insurance in our society tends to dominate our beliefs about what's really possible. When I started this series, and in the first and as well as in the third session, I told some pretty miraculous stories about healing that has taken place in the lives of folks that I've worked with. I also want to encourage you to explore these sorts of things on your own. There's a lot of literature about remarkable capacities of mine. The Future of the Body was one that was written by Michael Murphy. These are, accumulated research on people throughout history. And, rather than just my own history, how I've worked with people, think about all the other people that have reported this sort of thing and start to explore it. So what can we do if, for example, the doctors have no idea on what's going on and they don't know what to do next? What I found out is that's actually the good news, because we've gotten to the limit of the medical model. So now possible complementary and alternative solutions are available. That's usually when I've been called in on medical cases, because the consulting physician saw no contraindication to the kinds of techniques that I was using, and the results were fabulous. So don't let it be bad news that they don't know what's going on, okay? Nextly is, what are some strategies that we can use for acute pain? How do we cope effectively when there is a chronic illness or disease that's going on? How do we attain perfect health? And I want to introduce you to something called the Mental Workshop, which is part of what the Perfect Health Paraliminal actually works with. And then how to live disease-free. And that's enough material for the next 5 weeks, but we're going to cover it all in the next few minutes. So let's begin by doing a little drop-in. I want to encourage you to grab your drink of water, do a little stretch, stand up and stretch. I've talked about just, some kind of stretch like this that could help, lower back, kind of loosen things up, whatever it might be. That's what I mean by stand up, stretch, and hydrate. And then what we do is some kind of movement exercise. So I'm going to give you Qigong bouncing. So the way Qigong bouncing works is you just bounce like that. Now, my heels, if you can see them, are not coming off the floor. Can't see them? How about right there? You see my heels? So my heels are on the floor. I'm just bouncing at the knees themselves. I'm letting my shoulders and arms be nice and loose and relaxed. Now, bouncing is a tradition that is in all cultures. In the Native American tradition, the bouncing was a dance that they do, and their hands would come out from their midline, the heart center. African nations, many of their dances were this sort of bounce. People came to the New World, it was hallelujah kind of bouncing, right? And in the Chinese model, the bouncing is with the hands over the head and the wrists flopping. Now, I'm not waving my wrists, I'm letting them flop. And what happens is I'm actually stimulating meridians in the body. There are 12 meridians, 6 on each side, and those are getting stimulated, opening up the lung channels, shoulder channels, neck channels, enhances learning. Now keep bouncing, but lower your arms. Keep the bounce going, lower your arms and just feel it as you slow it down, and stop. Notice that? Feel that vibration going through your body? That's qi, energy. In the Taoist tradition, Chinese medical model, qi is that essential energy of life. In the Himalayan tradition, we call it prana, first unit of energy that flows from the mother, prana. Well, that is our life force, and anything we can do to get that life force moving through our body, that's a great movement activity. And when you're sitting, standing, whatever, you can also do some tapping. I'm going to recommend that you tap on your sternum. I hope this doesn't make the microphone bounce too much. You tap on the sternum point in the center of your chest and give yourself the affirmation that I have the ability to live disease-free. My body has the ability to restore and heal itself. I give my body, mind, and emotions what they need to restore to perfect health and vitality. All right, with that, let's drop in. Take a breath in, and as you exhale, close your eyes. Have your hands resting on your lap. To bring your blood pressure down, you put your palms face down. To bring your blood pressure up, if it's already too low, you place your palms facing up. Relax your shoulders and let the breathing drop into your abdomen. Get it out of those weaker muscles of your chest and shoulders. Relax your face. Let your forehead smooth out. Relax around your eyes and cheeks and jaw. And bring a slight hint of a smile to your face. Feel the touch of the breath in your nostrils. If you do, it brings your awareness to the here and now, because you can't be other times and places and still attend to the feeling of the breath in your nostrils. So just the act of noticing it, big benefit. Allowing it to flow smoothly and in a continuous cycle without pauses, evenly. Letting that breath bring balance to all the systems of your body. When the body is in a state of ease, calm, balance, as you are now, there isn't a state of dis-ease, it's a state of ease. So bringing yourself back to your breath, to this relaxation, to this calm, to this focus, enhances your body's ability to repair and restore itself. You're triggering the parasympathetic nervous system for the purpose of restoration. At a cellular, even genetic level, healing can take place. As you focus on possibility and what can occur, imagine if you were asleep and a miracle occurred and the problem that you were facing was resolved, was healed, was complete. But you're asleep and didn't know it. What would be the first thing you'd notice upon awakening that the miracle had occurred? What would be the first signs, the first small indicators of success that the miracle had actually taken place? Maintaining an awareness of the flow of the breath in your nostrils and this relaxation in your body and emotions. Gently rub your hands together. Make your hands nice and warm. Bring your hands to your eyes and open your eyes to the palms of your hands. Slowly draw your hands away from your face and your gaze into the room. It feels so good, doesn't it? I mean, how often are you taking time during the day to relax, just to restore, to do a brief intervention to return you to that place of joy and peace and centeredness? It's easier to feel appreciation, gratitude for your life. It's easier to move into happiness regardless of what's going on. So we're talking about how do we live really in our brilliant health, free of disease, limitations. And I'd like to share with you an important early story that happened for me. My teacher of hypnosis when I was 19 years old was a Mrs. Zula Bowers. And I had the opportunity to study clinical hypnotism with her, and I was a student of biological sciences at the time. And when I met her that first weekend that she trained me, I found out that she had been told she had 2 months to live. She was dying of an inoperable liver cancer. And it was 5 years after she'd been told that. She told the doctor, look, don't go telling me when I'm going to die. I can't even pack for a trip in 2 months, so don't give me that. She lived another 2.5 years, so I knew her for 2.5 years, and that time she gave me her practice, the oldest established hypnosis practice in the Twin Cities. But I also worked with her. She had been using hypnosis to control her pain and the complications of the cancer that she had. When she did pass, they did the autopsy on her. They said they couldn't believe that she had even been alive. The cancer had grown so much in her body, it finally strangled off her aorta. The cancer didn't kill her. It just had taken over her body. It was remarkable. So, and the stories are people get a diagnosis of a liver cancer, think of it as a horrible thing, and there is a tumor the size of a pea in them, and they die from that. It has a lot to do with our consciousness, right? So what Zula taught me, very important for me as a young man, was that death has no power. It can really choose how we go. And as one woman said, we're all going home someday, right? But you don't have to go home sick, and you don't have to be in a rush to get there. So, hey, let's live our lives full out using all the resources we have to live in health, to our very last breath, right? Why not? Well, there's a lot of messages in society that tell us that that's not going to be the case. So it's up to you, concentration, imagination, and suggestion. Tell you another story, an important story in the work that I've done. There was a man in the 1800s named Phineas Parkhurst Quimby. He was a watch repair man in Boston, Massachusetts in the 1820s, 1830s. And he became very interested in mesmerism. It's like hypnosis. It's where you take magnetic rods and you wave them over a person and you do what's called mesmeric passes, and they go into these trance states. And in those trance states, they can do remarkable things. Well, he was interested in it, and he had found a young man who, when he would go into these states, could do what we now know the U.S. military uses, technical remote viewing. Think about it as like psychic abilities. And so he went on tour up the East Coast showing this young man could take information from anybody in the audience, go visit a house, describe people at a distance and things. It was remarkable. Well, Quimby was suffering from a degenerative kidney disease, and the medical doctors of the day said that his kidneys were quite badly diseased. One was so bad that a section of it had separated, about 3-inch long section, and it was just hanging on by a couple of threads. He lived with constant back pain, and they said it would kill him. Well, one night after one of the demonstrations that Quimby gave with this young man as a demonstrator, he asked him, would you check my kidneys out? So the young man said, sure, I'll check them out. Put his hands on Quimby's back and described exactly what the medical profession had, that the kidneys were very badly diseased, that the one on the right had a little section about 3 inches long, just hanging on by a couple of threads. In other words, the same testimony that the medical doctors of the day were giving. Fearing the worst, but asking anyway, Quimby said, is there anything that can be done? The young man said, "Sure, I'll take care of it right now." Quimby felt immense heat coming from this young man's hands. Next day, no back pain. Never had it reoccur, never died from a kidney disease. And so he became so curious about how such a thing, so miraculous a thing could occur, that he began to study any records of spontaneous healing, and the best that he could find was the Bible. That Jesus was someone who really understood what he called the science of healing, understood the laws and the science behind healing. And so he created a manuscript describing Jesus, or the Christ, scientist and the science of healing. And those manuscripts were used in a healing practice that Quimby established in the 1800s. And one of his students, one of the people that he healed, was a woman named Mary Baker Eddy. Mary Baker Eddy started the Church of Christian Science in Boston using the very methods that Quimby had established. Now, what does this all mean to us, right? Remember, we talked about the symptom is not the cause. And what Quimby realized is that the only thing that the medical community could testify to is what their senses could determine. But causation lie at the etiology, the things that were causative were unable to be determined by the examination of symptoms. So by healing cause, the symptoms would disappear. And that's what he found to be the case. But what do the medical model and the insurance tables tell us? It's, in essence, they're dominating our mental model of what disease is all about. So one of the challenges that we have as consumers of the medical model is that practitioners of medicine are often told, don't set up false expectations. Give the worst case some possibilities, and if we don't know, we don't know. So when someone gave a prognosis, like to my teacher Zula, and she was told you have 2 months to live, she knew that that prognosis was just based on this guy's best understanding of what he was witnessing. He had no way to know that she would live 7.5 more years. But she also didn't want to give her false hope that she'd make it beyond a couple of months based on what he was seeing. Well, that kind of thing is that if there's a negative suggestion in any of that, realize it's only a suggestion. And if you want to supplant that negative suggestion with a positive one, do it. A colleague of mine was a nurse who did quite a bit of, it's called phlebotomist, who pulls blood samples out. She did a lot of that. One day she had to have it done. And someone said to her, this is just going to be a little pinch, a little bit like a bee sting. Well, she's allergic to bees. And when she received that needle, her arm swelled up terribly. She started to go into that same anaphylactic shock that occurs with people who are allergic to bee stings. It was a suggestion. It's going to be like a bee sting. But that suggestion registered in her entire body. And so I was asked by the Minnesota Dental Association to create a course on how dentists could actually communicate more effectively with patients so that they could be more tractable or malleable in the operatory and get a better healing result from any intervention that was done. I built this course with the assistance of a retired dental surgeon, oral surgeon named Fred Noah Gordon. And he did a study for Stanford on the effect of suggestion before and after surgery. And they found that with positive suggestion, the healing rates of 5 days could be reduced to 3. And one of the patients in the study didn't heal after 3 days, didn't heal after 5, didn't heal after a week. And after about 2 weeks, still haven't not healed, the team was afraid she would slough off the tissue graft that they had done. And so he asked this woman, would it be okay with you if I regressed you back through the surgery using hypnosis to try to find out what happened? She agreed, placed her in hypnosis, regressed her back through the event. And the interesting thing was she could tell every single thing that happened the entire time, every word that was spoken, every procedure that occurred through the entire surgery. And during the surgery, the anesthesiologist, who had a tendency to tell a lot of stories, told a story about his German Shepherd who had just gone through surgery. And the strangest thing was that after surgery, she wouldn't heal, meaning H-E-E-L, come alongside while you're walking. So Dr. Gordon stopped her and said, now, when you heard the story about the dog wasn't going to heal or didn't heal, did you hear H-E-E-L and make it H-E-A-L? And she said, yes. And did you then accept that as a suggestion for yourself that you wouldn't heal? Yes. Is that why you haven't healed yet? Yes. Can you remove that suggestion now? Yes, please do so. Brought her out. 3 days later, she was healed. Well, when Gordon told this to the rest of the team in the study, they were dumbfounded. They're absolutely thunderstruck and couldn't figure out how this could be. Could you redo that regression? So Astor went in, and everybody observed the same age regression, and the anesthesiologist asked the question. He said, while she was speaking, who was talking to us? I did the anesthesia. She was unconscious. Who was speaking? Who was telling every single detail of what happened if she was completely unconscious? And at that moment, Dr. Gordon had an epiphany. He realized that there is a capacity of the human mind to receive information below the threshold of our conscious awareness of it, that it can actually distinguish that information from other noise in the environment, and it can selectively act upon, even at the level of our biology, and never know that it's happening. And so when Dr. Gordon retired from oral surgery, he went on to teach about this amazing capacity, this accelerated learner that resides in all of us, and he taught it around the world to teachers, to help teachers know every human mind has this ability, this capacity. And we can throw off the negative suggestions and install the positive suggestions that will help us get us where we want to go. So that combination of working with Dr. Gordon and producing this course for dentists was great, but it also became a part of an ongoing faculty development workshop that I created as well. So it's about you connecting with that capacity within you. Hopefully that's what you've been getting through our sessions together. Now, if there's a part of us that's always aware, whether we're aware of it or not, that means that if a person's in a coma, you could speak to them. And in fact, I was asked to work with a young woman who had attempted to commit suicide. They found her non-responsive, pumped her stomach out, got her into the IC unit. 4 days later, her brain waves were normal, but she still was non-responsive. You could hit her right on the face, not even get a twitch or a blink reflex. Just completely out. And they didn't know what to do. Well, her aunt was a client of mine, said, Paul, do you think you could do something? I said, as long as I have permission from the medical authority, yeah, I'll come in. So I spoke to her as if she could listen to me, as if she could hear and respond to everything that I said. And I talked to her about what it would mean to reintegrate with her life, what it is that she would need to learn, to be able to do, to come back, and to carry on a productive and successful life. And of course, then I also added positive suggestions about her capacity to do so. My client brought me back to my office. She went back to the hospital, and when she got there, her niece was sitting up in bed. And when my client walked in the room, her niece burst into tears, said, "What do my parents think of what I did? What do my children think of what I did?" And she started that learning process and that reorientation. My client said, "Do you remember anything while you were out?" She said, "Well, I remember a voice." That was that. So realize that voice is penetrating to the part of us that's really listening. And if you think about paraliminal technology, this is really what we're doing, is we're communicating with this vast non-conscious capacity from which miracles can occur. I had a client named Jane Danielson who was chronically pain handicapped. She wore a neck brace. She had 7 spinal fusion operations. When she turned, this is how she turned. She had spent all of her resources on trying to get relief from this pain. And she spent her last few dollars on a private session with a Dr. Moshe Feldenkrais, who does body work. He was an Israeli engineer, applied engineering principles to the human body. And she got to see him in New York, went to his suite, and he said, "Throw that thing off." She took this neck brace off and threw it. And he said, "Walk across the room." Okay. Lay down on the table, pushed her back in a couple of spots. Sit up, walk across. Lay down, push her neck back in a couple of spots. And he said, "Turn your head." She said, "I can't." "Turn your head." And she went like this. She was pain-free. Miracle of miracles, right? She went back to her neurologist and said, "I have to show you what I can do. Look." He said, "You can't do that." She said, "But I just did." And he hit her on the chest and said, "I did the surgery on your spine. You can't do that." And he stormed out of the room. And Jane thought, okay, that was weird. Like, not interested in knowing about this miraculous thing that finally gave her relief after all these years, right? Another woman, a colleague of mine, Andrea Fisher, was in a head-on collision driving a Honda Civic, hit a 18-wheeler on an icy highway coming at her. She woke up 3 months later on a respirator from her coma. And her husband said, "I need a divorce. I can't take this." So the doctor said she's quadriplegic. She'll be on a respirator for the rest of her life. It's never going to get any better than this. Her spinal column was crushed. Her spinal cord is severed. That's it. This is as good as it gets. And after she reconciled her life, she decided she was going to walk out of that hospital one day. Almost 3 years to the date of the accident, the last vestige of doubt was gone. She had spent the first year 8-10 hours a day meditating, visualizing. She got off of a respirator, which everybody thought was a miracle. But 3 years, almost to the date, she stood up next to her bed. It's a medical impossibility. She collapsed. Her muscles had atrophied so much. But they then started physical therapy in earnest. And 7.5 years after the accident, she walked out of the hospital. Now, I had her come onto stages with me to tell her story. She'd been studied by neurospecialists from all over the world. You know what their conclusion was? It's a miracle. And she'd say, "Of course it's a miracle, but breathing's a miracle. My heartbeat's a miracle. It's all a miracle. Why won't you listen to what just occurred? I can tell you everything I did for 7.5 years. So I had the good fortune of meeting with her and helping to share that story, tell the story to others. She had her Swami come in. She got a whole foods diet in the hospital. She had massage therapists and chiropractors come in. She couldn't feel a thing from the neck down for years, right? But she actually regenerated her spinal cord. It's impossible. It's not possible. She did it. They had to install a couple of metal rods in her back because her spinal column was gone. And her breathing technique and her mental energy was so strong that it started to dissolve those metal rods, titanium rods. So she had to shift to another type of system in her back. I had a good friend, have a good friend, Sherry Ross, who found complementary and alternative treatments for 3 cancers that she got simultaneously. It was brain cancer, ovarian cancer, and lung cancer, I believe, or maybe it was lupus. She got all 3 simultaneously. She healed from them. She used essential oils. She's one of the top essential oils distributors on the planet because of her own personal testimony of what it did for her. Masanori Kanda, the developer of future mapping with us, used future mapping to make his melanoma, which was, I believe it was stage 3, melanoma, 120% happy using future mapping. And once it was happy, it left his body. So what I'm offering here are stories for the purpose of giving your imagination some wiggle room around whatever may be going on for you. Remember, our reality is always going to be based on concentration, imagination, and suggestion. What are you telling yourself about it? Are you getting the importance of these in any prognosis that you're given, in any healing process that you may be engaged in? If there is some kind of negation in any of the concentration, imagination, or suggestion, if there's any negation to the resources that could be available to you, you need to shift it to positive. Position your thinking with the end result in mind. Now, all of these stories I've been telling you, they're paradoxical in nature. They're amazing, but I got to ask you, why is it amazing? Is it amazing because not everybody knows about it? Is it amazing that you've never been taught these things? Is it amazing that you didn't grow up believing that this kind of thing was possible? It's not disparaging on the medical community. Believe me, I'm a big fan of medicine. And medicine, the traditional medical community, is also seeing the importance of complementary and alternative practices that can be assistive. And of course, this is why paraliminal technology can play such an important role. The paraliminal called Perfect Health is a very interesting one. Essentially, I have you imagine yourself lying on a table and then standing up alongside that table. It's like an exam table or a chiropractor's table. And you can place your hands over your body and find spots that are hot and cold. And hot spots, you cool down to warm. Cold spots, you warm up to cool. So rather than having hot and cold, you actually are getting a flow of energy. This is from Paul Pearsall's work called superimmunity. When we can get our immune system online to work into an advantageous degree for whatever it is that's going on, this is what we want to be able to facilitate. At a conscious level, look, you and I don't know what to do, but the perfect integrity of the body does. We need to get out of the way and help it to do what it can. And so I actually have you imagine your ideal self, your fully healed self on the other side of that same table. And together, you in consciousness, the ideal self, working with your physical body and its energies, are doing this kind of table work, if you will. Think of it as a mental workshop in which you can actually heal yourself. Well, the truth is, You can go a lot deeper. If you do go into the mental workshop, you can do techniques of healing where you can actually go into various organs, make the organs super gigantic, clean out the stuff that isn't helpful, spray it down, patch it up, make it all healthy and glowy and nice and good, and actually facilitate the healing process with that. Carl Symington made this famous in cancer treatments way back when I was first starting out in this kind of work in the 1980s. But a lot of work has been done in the last 40 years on what's really possible. I created a paraliminal with J.J. Virgin called the Miracle Mindset. Realize it's your mindset, this concentration, imagination, suggestion, that's really going to make the biggest difference. So let's have a mindset that's positioning the possibility for you to enjoy. Make sense? So I want to talk briefly about dealing with acute pain, like an injury that just occurred. My youngest son, or my middle son, he was the youngest at the time, got a fishhook in his finger. I had to bring him in to the emergency ward, and he was just screaming bloody murder. The barb went in, so you had to go and get it clipped and pulled out. He was just screaming. I'd clipped the line, but this fish lure was still stuck into his little finger. I think he was all of about 4 years old. And take it out. As I was driving, I knew I wasn't going to make it to the hospital with the screaming going on. His blood curdling. I said, John, that really hurts, doesn't it? He said, yes. Is it sharp or is it a dull pain? It's sharp. And is it cold or is it hot? It's cold. And is it red or green or blue? It's red. And I said to him, what can happen to something that's cold and sharp and red to make it different? And he was silent. I looked over at him while I was driving. He had this amazing look on his face. I said, it just changed, didn't it? He said, uh-huh. I said, what's different? Feels like pancakes with syrup on it. Well, that's a big shift in the mental image, right? And I said, now your mind just did this. Imagine getting this when you were 4 or 5 years old, right? Your mind just did this for you. And this is an ability you're going to be able to use for all the rest of your life. So let me teach it to you. And I taught him what I'm going to teach you right now. It's called the submodalities of our visual, auditory, and kinesthetic experiences. I also helped someone with this who was having a couple of pins removed after she had broken her arm, and the surgeon had to install these pins to put her arm in traction within the cast. So the submodalities, if you have any area of acute pain, any place within you that has a pain, there's always an edge to it. There's a thickness, there's a description of it. And if you go into the description of it, how thick is it, how thin is it? The edges of it, what do the edges look like? Is it sharp and it's scraggly, or is it smooth, round? What does it look like? How thick is it? What colors, what sounds, what temperatures are associated with it? When you get a description of it, simply ask the mind, and what can happen to this description to make it different? Of course, the mind doesn't want to be in pain. The mind is actually sending a signal there. That's another story, but the pain isn't located in that spot. It's actually in your brain. Your brain is what perceives it, right? So it's sending the signal there, and you're getting that visual, auditory, kinesthetic experience of it. What can begin to shift? Now, as soon as it begins to shift, the mind realizes, oh, you don't have to hurt now. And so when I worked with Barb Kobe to pull these out, I just did one additional thing. I said, notice it, describe it, get it to change, and now imagine you're watching your body over there having the pins removed. In fact, step out of that and watch yourself watching that image of you watching you over there. So it was called double disassociation. So here's the work. Step out of it and look at the work being done. Step out of that and just don't even look at that. Just watch yourself watching that. So if your image of the actual work taking place is too unpleasant, I had a tendency to faint whenever I'd see stuff like this. Whoa. So I would say, I would disassociate and just give the instructions like that. Works absolutely beautifully. The human mind doesn't want to have to experience pain. But if the only thing we could do is keep projecting the image of why it looks like that and what it feels like, we're stuck. Give it some options: concentration, imagination, and suggestion. When my mom fell and broke her wrist, she wanted me to be there to help the surgeon set it without anesthesia. So I had her go into a dissociative state, where she was perfectly calm and comfortable. The doctor came and tested it, pushed pins all around, good anesthesia, put the fingers in traction, put a weight there, and then manipulated the wrist, wrapped it. I said to the doctor, "What did you think?" He said, "Well, I've had anesthesia that good chemically." Okay, anything else? Well, it was remarkable how relaxed the tissues were around the break. And as a result of that, I was able to put it into place really easily. Now, he was one of the only medical doctors that didn't think that was the coolest thing he'd ever seen, and please teach that to me. But, perhaps like Jane Danielson's doctor didn't want to know about it. By the way, Andrea Fisher's doctor, the woman who had her spinal column crushed, her neurologist said, "I can't explain what I've just witnessed. I'm going to keep studying until I can explain this." So he left the field of neurology and went on to study complementary and alternative medicine. Good for him, pretty cool. When your mental model gets blown, find a mental model that will really work for you. We're always operating from our map of reality. It might as well be a map that's serving us. Another idea here is, how do we cope with chronic illness? Now, I talked about having a mental workshop, imagining your body there in front of you and being able to work on it. Essentially, we can't control the healing process, but we can create an environment in which healing is more likely to occur. When my father-in-law had congestive heart failure, the fact that he was a retired Methodist minister and had a life of faith and was joyful and had good humor the whole time he was in the operatory, they knew his prognosis was great. My father had congestive heart failure, and the four of us kids got together and we had a big laugh fest. They said, "We got to come to say goodbye," but we laughed our way through a couple of days. He couldn't receive a pacemaker. He wasn't responding to any of the medicine. He responded to the medicine. He was able to receive a pacemaker. He lived another 26 years beyond when they expected him to die. And he was laughing so hard at one point that my mom was a little worried and asked the doctor, "Is it okay that he's laughing this hard?" And the doctor said, "I've never seen anyone die from laughter. And by the way, if he did die, how bad would it be that he goes out like that?" So, think about this playful nature, this idea of what are the possibilities. Let's have an image of what can be. And think about from 0 to -10, that disease model. You're not in a state of ease. How can we move it from 0 to +10? This is the ultimate direction we're headed to: high-level wellness. And you're going to live disease-free and into high-level wellness when you're using all of these resources within you. So, Paraliminals, perfect health. Miracle mindset. Another one I haven't talked about, new option generator, where you're between a rock and a hard place, like you got to go through treatment, but you don't want to go through treatment, but if you don't, you don't know, and so on. Good to get that kind of help. The belief paraliminal, very important one, especially belief in the prognosis that you can get to where you want to go, to a high level of wellness. And finally, the gratitude paraliminal. Now, I want to finish this session with a brief drop-in. We're really over time from what I was planning to do, but there's just so much cool material here. Like I said, we could do about 10 hours with this one alone. Our next session is on aging with vitality and grace. You're going to love it. Right now, let's drop in, shall we? Take a quick drink of water, a little sip of water. Where's mine? It's over there. And then go ahead and place your feet flat on the floor, your hands on your lap. Take a breath in. As you exhale, close your eyes and go within. Relaxing your shoulders. Relaxing your face, getting that hint of a smile. Following that breath in your nostrils and allowing it to flow smoothly, deeply, and evenly. This breath is a miracle. The beating heart in your chest right now is a miracle. Life is a miracle. When there is some blockage or damage to us mentally, physically, emotionally, the integrity of this magnificent human experience can find a way. The brain, with neuroplasticity, can do workarounds and grow new possibilities. Our emotions can be healed, and we can become strengthened from what we've experienced. Our bodies can repair themselves in ways that no medical science can even explain. It's still beyond comprehension how spectacular you really are. You're spectacular in every way. You are magnificent in every way. Sit here, now, in this magnificent field of energy that you are. Physical, emotional, mental. Choose to live in high-level wellness. See yourself letting go of what no longer serves, whether it's an idea, a mental model, and live into the possibility. Make a choice to have focus, intention, and no tension. Be at peace. Be at peace. Hattery, which is comfortable for you. Rub your hands together, make them nice and warm. Bring them to your eyes. Open your eyes, the palms of your hands. Bring your hands away from your face. Good session. Thanks for participating. Our next session is number 6 in this series of 6. We'll see you soon. Bye for now.